Alrighty, boys. Who was here last week?
Me.
Me.
Raise your hand if you were here last week.
Me.
Raise your hand if you want to pray.
I was here last week, but
Ha!
no.
All right. So I need one of you guys to pray, and we're gonna start this morning. Which of you guys wants to do it? Aaron, got it?
Sure.
You want to do it? All right, Aaron, go ahead.
Okay, open this up. Whoa.
What do you do?
Dear God, thank you for this day. Thank you that it's a good day. And I hope you all have a good day. Amen.
That was pretty funny. Everyone's laughing.
Good day. Good day.
It wasn't that funny. I don't know. All right. Anyway, so any of you guys here last week, who can tell me what was the last book you studied and who taught it?
I don't know his name.
Who
I
taught
don't
it?
know it. I don't know.
You're worthless.
It was downstairs. It was downstairs.
It was down. Yeah, no, you're right. I can't remember his name.
It was upstairs.
You're right. Now I'm thinking about it. It wasn't actually upstairs. What I meant was the week before last. Who taught the last book?
Oh, yeah. I like it.
That was
Downstairs.
That was Ezekiel, and that was Andrew taught it. And does anybody remember something really weird that was in the book of Ezekiel?
Oh, I remember a lot.
I bet you do. Scarf the life. Colt, go ahead.
Wasn't that the one about Vapor? Like Eric Google was missing Vapor, like this thing, grab.
No, that was Ecclesiastes.
Well, it was some.
Anybody remember? What happened to your finger?
Barely sprained, and it was fast.
I was gonna say basketball now. Makes sense. You never sprained your finger playing basketball? Odd.
You never like have the ball as a crank up and you can't.
Just like right, yeah, it's the worst. Anyway, is anybody? Okay, so
Yeah.
I think that most of you guys, I don't think any of you girls were here last or week before last, right? Because Andrew was teaching. But anyway, so long story short, Ezekiel is a book of prophecy about some really weird stuff. He's like talking about dry, dead skeleton bones coming to life. Some weird stuff. Yeah, it was a pretty cool book though. Anyway, we're gonna go on to the book of Daniel. Everyone's going to need
Oh,
a
I thought
Bible.
Daniel wasn't here tonight.
No, Daniel is here in our hearts.
Gotcha.
I got to see Baby G. I got to see her. She's so cute.
Yeah, I saw her in the car yesterday. I rolled up and I was next to the Quinio car.
Yeah, so in case any of you guys are missing that, hey. So Daniel is out on maternity leave, even though he's a father. I think he's still on maternity leave as a dad. But his baby's like this big. It's like she's
Like a really big cucumber.
like a cute. Yeah, like you ever seen like some of those really like not the really big cucumbers, but like they're big. It's
In
like-
her picture,
almost
she
like a
looked
gourd.
really mad.
I mean, she was just born. She was like,
Doesn't have eyebrows.
put it this way: what would happen if you were sleeping for like 9 months? Okay, you're sleeping and you're really happy, and someone's like, "It's time to get up," and then they like cut your umbilical cord off because you have one of
Oh my
you sleep with the umbilical cord, and then they like, they, all in all, it's an angry process. That makes sense. I'd start crying too, especially if I couldn't use my words. Anyway, everyone's gonna need a Bible. Go get one. Go get a Bible.
I got one.
There's you, little.
I got one in one here.
Oh yeah, well, I can see one. So you got one for
No, we're book of Daniel.
That's the wrong number.
Daniel, the book of.
Oh, we're reading the book of our teacher. That's here.
No.
Oh.
No.
We're reading the book of our teacher that's not here.
It can't.
Exactly.
He's so selfish. They all spend with children. Kind of man and child.
No, not that. The one from.
So we're on page 953.
No, what page 1000?
Why are there two dots after Daniel?
It's actually 1000.
Well, because I put the third dot at the very end.
Gotcha. Okay.
Awesome. All right, I need a volunteer to read chapter 1, verse. Let's go 1 through 7.
Not me.
I
Christian.
can do it.
Ha!
One through seven?
What? I was going to look that up.
That's fair.
But go ahead.
In the third year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. And the Lord delivered Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand, along with some of the articles from the temple of God, officials, of the king's service, some of the Israelites, from the royal family and the nobility. Young men without any physical defect, handsome, showing aptitude for every kind of learning, well informed, quick to understand, and qualified to serve in the king's palace. He was to teach them the language and literature of the Babylonians. The king assigned them the daily amount of food and wine from the king's table. They were to be trained for 3 years, and after that they were to enter the king's service. Among those who were chosen were some from Judah: Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. The chief official gave them new names. To Daniel, the name
Belteshazzar.
Belteshazzar. To Hananiah, Shadrach. To Mishael, Meshach. And to Azariah, Abednego.
We call him Shadrach and Abednego. Okay, is that it? That's the entire thing. Okay, so that's just a really quick introduction to this entire book. There's a lot of really cool stuff in this. I'm sure you guys have heard at least 2 or 3 stories out of the book of Daniel, but we're going to try and dive in. We're going to try and talk about every single one of the stories. There's also a lot of cool prophecy. Go ahead. That's not in the book of Daniel, but they don't sound anything.
Oh, Caleb, do you want a bit of backstory? What's going on?
Yeah, no, I was gonna go into that, but yeah. So a little bit of backstory. If you guys remember, Jehoiakim remember we had like the several good kings of Judah, the northern Israel that was like not good at all, and then you had a lot of stuff going on right here that we're talking about Nehemiah, talking about Jeremiah, we're talking about Ezra. All that stuff is happening right around this time, right when we were talking about Ezekiel. That's actually when this was happening in, I think it was 605 BC. Go ahead.
Wouldn't it be called the Book of Belteshazzar?
Well, we'll go into that. But in all honesty, no, I would say the book of Daniel is a lot better because it's actually a point I want to make. Daniel means God is my judge, and Belteshazzar means Bel protect us. So it might not be the best name to have in the Bible. It's like Bel protect us, because in case you're wondering, Bel is from Beauty and the Beast. She is the main character, the protagonist, and they were really into modern Disney back in 605 BC. What?
That was all a lie. He didn't catch that.
It was hogwash. No, Belteshazzar, Bel protect us. Bel was one of the deities in Babylon. I think they had 35 or 40, not that many, but more than the one true God. So yeah, anyway, so a little bit of backstory. We're going around the same period of time, 605 BC. If you guys remember, the Israelites had just been like sacked, and all the Israelites being taken away from Jerusalem. Do you guys remember any of that? Any of that ringing the bell? Anyway, so that's actually been historically, they kind of like worked it out, and archaeology, like, oh yeah, here's when Babylon took a bunch of prisoners from Israel. Oh, that's kind of cool. That was probably Daniel in that. It was kind of cool. Anyway, so that's a really quick introduction. We're going to be following the lives of Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and Belteshazzar. And yeah, so we'll just do a really quick overview here. They save us a lot of trouble by going over a lot of really cool stuff here. So, shh, pay attention. Yeah, or if you want to click balance,
You muted it, didn't you?
I did not. But it probably, yeah, just probably just leave that on the top. See, so, I think so. Right. It's working this morning. I think we can test that cover. Try again. I'm gonna check to make sure all the bits are strong.
The book of Daniel. The story is set right after Babylon's first attack on Jerusalem, and they had plundered the city and its temple and taken a wave of Israelites into exile. Among them were 4 men from the royal family of David: Daniel, who's later named Belteshazzar, and his 3 friends, who you probably know by their Babylonian names: Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. This book tells of their struggles to maintain hope in the land of their conquerors. The book's design seems pretty simple at first. verse. Chapters 1 through 6 contain stories about Daniel and his friends in Babylon, while chapters 7 through 12 contain the visions of Daniel about the future. But this two-part shape is made even more interesting by another design feature, and that's the book's language. It begins in Hebrew, the language of the Israelites, but chapters 2 through 7 are written in Aramaic, a cousin language to Hebrew spoken widely among the ancient empires. But then in chapters 8 through 12, it goes back to Hebrew. This design shows how chapters 2 through 7 are a coherent section, but it also highlights the importance of chapters 2 and 7 for understanding the later chapters of the book. Let's just dive in. Chapter 1 introduces the basic tension of the first half of the book. Daniel and his friends, they're really wise and capable, and they're recruited to serve in the royal palace of Babylon. But they're pressured to give up their Jewish identity by living and eating like Babylonians and violating the Jewish food laws found in the Torah. So they refuse, and they choose faithfulness to the Torah, and it puts them in danger. But God delivers them, and they end up being elevated by the king of Babylon. After this begins the Aramaic section, which you'll see has this really cool symmetrical design. So at first, the king of Babylon has a dream that, it turns out, only Daniel is able to interpret. It's about a huge statue made of 4 types of metal, and it symbolizes a sequence of kingdoms, and the head is Babylon. But then a huge rock comes flying in, and it shatters the statue, and it becomes this huge mountain. Now, this dream is the first of many symbolic visions in the book, and this one introduces the basic storyline of them all. Daniel says that the statue represents a train of human kingdoms following from Babylon, and they will all fill God's world with violence. But one day, God's kingdom will come and will confront and humble the arrogant kingdoms of this world and fill the world with the healing justice of God's reign and rule. After this, chapter 3 tells the famous story of Daniel's 3 friends who refuse to bow down and worship a huge idol statue, which, like the statue in chapter 2, represents the king and his imperial power. So the friends are persecuted. They're thrown into a fiery furnace, but God delivers them from death, and they're exalted by the king, who now acknowledges their God as the true one. After this come a pair of stories about 2 Babylonian kings, the father, Nebuchadnezzar, and then his son, Belshazzar. They're both filled with pride because of their imperial power. And so, like in chapter 2, God warns them both through dreams and then visions, which, also like chapter 2, only Daniel can interpret. He says that both kings are to humble themselves before God, and both kings arrogantly resist. So Nebuchadnezzar is stricken with madness. He becomes like a beast in the field. But then he humbles himself before God, and his humanity returns to him. He's restored as king. This is in contrast with his son, Belshazzar, who doesn't humble himself before God, and he's assassinated that very night. Now, these 2 stories draw this imagery from Genesis chapters 1 and 2 and Psalm 8, where humans are depicted as the royal image of God. He's given them authority to rule over the beasts of the field and the birds of the air on behalf of God, who is the world's true king. But when human kingdoms forget that, when they rebel and make themselves and their power into a god, they become less than human, like violent beasts who will face God's justice. Which brings us to chapter 6, the pair of chapter 3. And this time it's Daniel who's being persecuted because he refuses to pray and worship the king as a god. And so, like the friends, he's sentenced to death and he's thrown into a lion's den. But God delivers him from the beasts, and like the friends, the king exalts Daniel and praises his God, which brings us to chapter 7. It's the pair of chapter 2 and the center of the book where all its themes come together. It's another dream, but it's Daniel's this time. And ironically, he can't understand the dream until an angelic messenger explains it to him. He sees a series of 4 beasts, one like a lion, then like a bear, then one like a winged leopard, each of these symbolizing an arrogant kingdom. And last of all is a super beast, identified as a really evil empire. And it has lots of horns, a common symbol for kings in the Old Testament. And there's one specific horn who is an image of an arrogant king who exalts himself above God and persecutes God's people. Now they are symbolized by a figure called the Son of Man, who's an image for both God's covenant people, but also for their king from the line of David. But then all of a sudden, God, who's called the Ancient of Days, comes and he sets up his throne. He destroys the super beast and he exalts the Son of Man on the clouds, where he comes up to sit at God's right hand and share in God's rule over the nations. We can look back now and see how all of these stories in the first half fit together. The 3 stories of faithfulness despite persecution. These are meant to offer hope to God's suffering people among the nations. But they suffer because human kingdoms have rebelled against God and have become beasts. And so these visions encourage patience, that God's people are to wait for him to bring his kingdom and rule over our world and vindicate his suffering people. But it raises the question about when God is going to do that, and that's what these final three visions set out to explore. In chapter 8, Daniel has another vision about the final two beasts of chapter 7, but this time they're symbolized by a ram, who we're told is an image of the empire of the Medes and Persians, and then by a goat, who's an image of ancient Greece. And out of the goat come a whole bunch of horns, one of which symbolizes the evil king from chapter 7. And we're told more about him, that he will attack Jerusalem and exalt himself above God and defile the temple with idols. However, in the end, he will be destroyed by God, who will exalt his people and his kingdom. Now, by chapter 9, Daniel is very puzzled, especially as to when all of this is going to take place. And so he consults the scroll of the prophet Jeremiah, where God said that Israel's exile would only last 70 years. So for Daniel, the 70 years is almost up. And so he asks God to fulfill his promise soon. But an angel comes and informs him that Israel's sin and rebellion has continued. And so their time of exile and oppression will continue on 7 times longer than Jeremiah envisioned. Daniel is deeply disturbed by this, and he has one final vision. We're shown the same sequence of kingdoms: Persia, then Greece, and Alexander the Great, followed by lesser kings, all leading up to this final king of the north, who will invade Jerusalem, set up idols in the temple, and exalt himself above God. But then, all of a sudden, this king comes to ruin. Now, there's been endless debate about what all of these visions refer to. Many see a clear connection to the exploits of the Syrian king Antiochus in the 160s BC. He killed many faithful Jews in Jerusalem and set up idols in the temple. Others think it points forward to the Roman Empire's role in the execution of Jesus and the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple in AD 70. And still others think it will be fulfilled in future events that have yet to happen when Jesus will return. Now the problem is that the symbols and the numbers, they don't quite match any of these views perfectly. But it opens up the possibility that in a sense, they are all right. The book of Daniel has been designed to offer hope to all future generations of God's people. It did so in the days of Antiochus's empire, and it has ever since. This is why Jesus could use imagery from Daniel to describe and confront the oppressive leaders he confronted in Jerusalem. This is why John, the visionary who wrote the Revelation, could adapt Daniel's visions and apply them to Rome of his day and also all future oppressive empires. And so the point of Daniel is that all generations of readers can find here a pattern and a promise. It's a pattern that human beings and their kingdoms become violent beasts when they glorify their own power, when they redefine right and wrong and don't acknowledge God as their true king. But Daniel also holds out a promise that one day God will confront the beast. He will rescue his world and his people by bringing his kingdom over all nations. And so for every generation, this book speaks a message of hope that should motivate faithfulness. And that's what the book of Daniel is all about.
Oh gosh.
Well, that'll wrap it up. Who's afraid to finish? Fine, since Jacob's here, means I actually have to teach.
Oh,
now.
Jacob, on your phone?
Oh, we have a bucket for that.
It's a phone bucket.
I thought he was like, I was on my Bible. But I'm gonna give you a Bible. Just what?
Sure, I was looking at my Bible.
Nice
I used to say that all the time.
That's like
No, you can. Okay. So these are my notes right here. I'm pretty professional as far as note taking goes.
No.
But yeah, let's dive right in. We're still in chapter 1 of Daniel. Something I also wanted to point out real quick is we already read the 1 through 7 talking about them getting new names. Jonathan's not gonna. Yeah, that's yes. Yeah, you don't really have to ask usually, but okay. What just happened? Did I miss it? All right. Anyway, so we're gonna go back to chapter 1. We were talking about them getting new names. Belteshazzar, not Belshazzar. That was the king's son's name. And then we have Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Ladies, shh. It's hilarious, I'm sure. I'm positive it's just the funniest thing to read.
Oh, you have to go sell
Life changing. It is life changingly fun. Anyway, so something that was kind of happening there. You notice how they were taken away from their home. They were given new names, names that kind of were exactly against what they used to believe. You know, it's like, well, my name means God will judge me. It's like, no, no, your name means all praise our God. So that's kind of a big thing. Then they took them and they gave them food and drink that they weren't supposed to have because in the Torah it says not only eat certain meats, pork, shrimp, certain things like that, delicious things, which is kind of a bummer because they were delicious and they weren't allowed to eat it because God had said, hey, I want you guys to be clean. So they were supposed to take away from that. They're supposed to learn about the Babylonian culture. They're pretty much supposed to be brainwashed, which is kind of a really smart thing for the Babylons to do because they're like, here, we'll take all your really smart people, all your kings, all your really, really able-bodied men. We're going to take them over here. We're going to brainwash them, and then maybe we'll send them back. I don't know. That was probably their plan. But anyway, so, and you see in that first story, you see them refusing that. You see them praying. You see them being respectful and saying, hey, we want to try and we want to not eat this rich food that you're giving to us. We want to do what's right because God's called us to do that, and that's what we're supposed to be doing. So that's kind of a really cool first little story you have there. But yeah, we're going to move on to chapter 2. We're going to start right in Daniel 2, verse 25. Let's read that. Maddox. Chapter 2. And it's Daniel. So you're going to be on page 725, I believe, or 726. I don't think Paul is telling the truth. Okay, so we'll actually I'm gonna read the dream itself real quick. It says.
Yep, it says that.
That's not what it says. All right, so in chapter 2 it says, one night during the second year of the reign of King Nebuchadnezzar. King Nebuchadnezzar had such disturbing dreams that he couldn't sleep. He called in his magicians, enchanters, sorcerers, astrologers. Quick note: in this book they really like lists, listing things off. Instead of saying he called in all the smart people, he called in all of his magicians, enchanters, sorcerers, astrologers. You'll see that several times. There's just kind of something to note.
Yeah, astrologers.
The astrologers.
You guys are pretty good at predicting dreams.
Yep, and not even interpreting, predicting. You'll see this here. He says, and they demand they tell him what he had dreamed. Now, hang on a second. At this point, you have to realize, you're a hocus-pocus magician, and you've been predicting dreams your entire life. Someone says, oh, and I had a dream that I was falling. Well, tomorrow, when you eat breakfast, you will, hocus-pocus. But at this point, he says, I want you guys to tell me what I dreamed. I want you to tell me word for word what I dreamed. And I want you to, what does he say? I must know what it means. And the astrologers answered, in Aramaic, long live the king. Tell us your dream, and we will tell you what it means. And the king said to the astrologers, I am serious about this. If you don't tell me what my dream was and what it means, you will be torn limb from limb, and your house will be burned into heaps of rubble.
That's a nice guy.
Really nice guy. He says, but if you tell me what I dreamed and what the dream means, I will give you many wonderful gifts and honors. Just tell me the dream and what it means. And they said again, please, your majesty, tell us the dream and tell us what it means. And this goes on for a while. It goes on, blah, blah, harsh decrees, and he gets upset. He says everyone's going to be put to death. I think he lists off all the people who are going to be put to death, and everyone starts panicking. Anyway, so we go on to verse 24, which Maddox is going to read.
A quick note, something I do find pertinent in verse 9, the astrologers are talking about, they're freaking out because they knew they were going to die because they couldn't predict the king's dream. And so they had said, no one on earth can tell the king his dream, and no king, however great and powerful, has ever asked such thing of any magician, enchanter, astrologer. The king's command is impossible. No one except the gods can tell you your dream, and they do not live here among the people. So I mean, even they knew that it was something that God had.
Yeah, which is it's kind of cool that they're like and God.
And I mean, they were right.
And yep, and it says. Okay, so in verse 14 it says, and when Arioch, commander of the king's guard, came to kill them, well, that escalated quickly. Daniel handled the situation with wisdom and discretion. Yes, Arioch says, why does the king issue such a harsh decree? Guy comes in with a sword. All right, time for you to die. Wait. Now answer me this question. Why? Oh, well, you make a good point there, Daniel. So Daniel goes home, talks to Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, those guys, and then they start praying. So verse 24 starts off right after they finish praying, and then he goes seeking. So go ahead.
Then Daniel went to see Arioch, whom the king had ordered to execute the wise men of Babylon. Daniel said to him, "Don't go, the wise men, take me to the king, and I will tell him the meaning of his dreams." Arioch quickly took Daniel to the king and said, "I found one of the captains from Judah who will tell the king the meaning of his dream." The king said to Daniel, "Thus is this true? Can you tell me what my dream was and what it means?" Daniel replied, "There are no wise men, enchanters, magicians, or fortune tellers who can reveal the king's secret. For there is God in heaven who reveals secrets, and he has shown King Nebuchadnezzar what will happen in the future. Now I will tell you the visions you saw as you lay in your bed. While your majesty was sleeping, you dreamed about coming events. He who reveals secrets has shown you what is going to happen. And it is not because I am wiser than anyone else that I know the secret of the dream, but because God wants you to understand what was in your mind. In your vision, your majesty
That's good.
saw."
You can stop right there. Yeah, so I just want to stop right there. He handles this like super mellow. He doesn't say, "Oh well, I worship the one true God, so I have powers and mystical, wondrous dream translating and prediction and all sorts of wonderful powers." He was very honest about it. He said, "I don't actually have any powers. No one, it's true, nobody can tell you what this means except for God, and God is living among."
When he was saying this, was he saying like a scary voice, like, and God is the only one who can tell you your dream?
I've gone through the book of Daniel. I've read throughout the entire thing, and I think that pretty much anytime you hear these guys talking, it's really bold because the things they're saying are really bold. They aren't saying things like, "Well, please don't. I really don't want to. Please, oh, give me some slack." They're saying things like, "Hey, I don't care if you decide to kill me because God's gonna protect me, regardless of what you decide to do." So I would say, pretty sure it was pretty awesome when he walked in there and kind of just confronted the king about that. Let's see. So the interpretation. Yeah. Anyway, so then we go to what the dream means. Let's see. 31. It says, and he's talking about statues. "In your vision, Majesty, you saw standing before you a huge shining statue of man. It was a frightening sight. The head of the statue is made of gold, the chest and arms of silver, the belly and thighs of bronze." So he goes on to describe the entire statue. And then there's a rock that comes and destroys it. And he explains that the kingdoms, each one is progressively a different kingdom. Nebuchadnezzar was one of the kings.
The top of the head.
He was very happy. He's like, "Ooh, that's pretty cool." That probably made him happy. And then he said, "Well, and then there's going to be a big old rock. And that rock's going to destroy your kingdom."
Was talking about how his kingdom's gonna fall and no one's gonna take it over.
Yeah,
It's
and
gonna
the
fall,
kind of
no
cool
one's
thing
gonna
is
take
that
it over.
that's all very futuristic, and I believe, let me see that real quick. He says, "In the meaning of the rock cut from the mountain, though not by human hands, that crushes pieces of the statue of iron, bronze, clay, silver, and gold," another list, "the great God has shown the king what will happen in the future. The dream is true, and the meaning is certain." So that's kind of cool, And then at that point, Nebuchadnezzar is like, "Whoa, I'm going to reward you greatly beyond all of your dreams." And he does, and he also rewards Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, which is kind of cool. At the very end of this, it says, "And the king appointed Daniel as in a high position and gave him many valuable gifts. He made Daniel ruler over the whole province of Babylon, as well as chief over all his wise men. At Daniel's request, the king appointed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to be in charge of the affairs of all the province of Babylon, while Daniel remained in the king's court." Now it's a great moment for Nebuchadnezzar right there. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are all in really powerful positions to see how God was able to work. Nebuchadnezzar is fully devoted to God at this point, probably. Let's go to chapter 3. Who is that? Who's that? Let's see.
I'll read.
Oh, now remember, this is immediately after Daniel has just shown that God is able to predict dreams, and Nebuchadnezzar said,
He's
"Wow, this
worshiping him, he's
is
saying,
the most
"Wow,
powerful
this is
God."
great."
This is immediately after that. Go ahead.
King Nebuchadnezzar made a gold statue 90 feet tall and 9 feet wide and set it upon the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Then he sent messages to the high officers, officials, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the provincial officials to come to the dedication of the statue he had set up. So all the officials came and stood before the statue King Nebuchadnezzar had set up.
Now, yeah, so right there. Now, you guys may remember this story. Many of you guys probably heard it before, but those of you who haven't, this is This is going to be good. Now, I just want you to keep in mind throughout this entire story, this is immediately after Nebuchadnezzar has just seen the power of God. So go ahead.
Let's see. So all the officials came and stood before the statue King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then a herald shouted out, "People of all races and nations and languages, listen to the king's command. When you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipes, and other musical instruments, bow to the ground and worship King Nebuchadnezzar's gold statue. Anyone who refuses to obey will immediately be thrown in the blazing furnace."
It's 4 through 7. Okay.
Yes, so at the sound of the musical instruments, all the people of whatever the race, nation, or language bowed to the ground and worshipped the gold statue that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up.
All right, and let's move straight on to verse 8. Let's see. Moses, you can put it there. I don't know if it's pronunciation at this point. I think it's probably just.
Come on.
Let's sit back. Come on.
Just say my name and just ask someone else. Say
Say
my
it
name
right.
You know how that works?
No.
It's probably someone.
No,
You already said it. So.
yeah, you're right.
Someone
I'll
else.
come back to you. All right, fair enough. Let's see. Go ahead. Something up.
Therefore, at that time, certain Chaldeans came forward and accused the Jews. They spoke and said to King Nebuchadnezzar, "O king, live forever. You, O king, have made a decree that everyone who hears the sound of the horn, flute, harp, lyre, and psaltery and symphony with all kinds of music shall fall down and worship the gold image." And
Good. That works. And verse 11, and it says, that decree also states that those refusing to obey must be thrown into a blazing furnace. Now, the astrologers at this point are just out to get Shadrach, Meshach, and
You
Abednego.
guys shown up.
They got shown up. I mean, they said, "Oh, no one can. It's never happened. No one. It's impossible. Please don't kill us." And then Daniel comes in and interprets the dream, predicts the dream, and makes them all look really silly. Which, to be honest, they have a pretty silly job. They just make up stuff. What? Hey, that's what I would be
Actually,
thinking.
Daniel went out of his way to save their lives.
He
too.
could have let them all get killed and then.
Well,
and
and
then
the-
But
the
you
middle-
know, in this culture, the Eastern culture, honor is more important than life. Like,
I
to
guess.
be seriously, to be dishonored to them, worse than death.
Worse than death. So maybe they just wanted to be killed. I guess, or something. But right now, their
But
bosses.
they were pretty upset.
Well, if you also remember, their bosses right now are Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and Daniel. And I don't know where Daniel is in this story. I looked, couldn't find any mention of him. But right now, we're just talking about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, because the astrologers come in. They say it says the decree states that those who refuse to obey must be thrown into the blazing furnace. But there are some Jews, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, whom you have put in charge of the province of Babylon. They pay no attention to you, your majesty. They refuse to serve your gods. Do not worship the gold statue you have set up. Oh no, they didn't. And I think they probably didn't include Daniel in this just because Daniel was number 2, I think, or number 3 to the king, which you probably don't want to go messing with that guy. And says, then King Nebuchadnezzar flew into a rage and ordered the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be brought before him. When they were brought in, Nebuchadnezzar said to them, "Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you refuse to serve my gods or to worship the gold statue I have set up?" He doesn't wait for an answer. He just says, "I will give you one more chance to bow down and worship the statue I have made. When you hear the sound of the musical instruments," now he doesn't just say that, he goes and listens, I think. Nope, he doesn't listen. I like lists. "But if you refuse, you will be thrown immediately into the blazing furnace, and then what God will be able to rescue you from my power?"
The challenge.
And he doesn't wait for an answer. He just says, "Oh, did you guys not hear? Too bad. I'm gonna give you another chance." And then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God who we serve is able to save us. He will rescue us from your power, your majesty. But even if he doesn't, we want to make it clear to you, your majesty, that we will never serve your gods or worship the gold statue you set up." And then in the next verse, they are thrown into the furnace and held back. We move on to the next chapter, which is what?
It's not quite.
It's close. I mean, the next it says blazing furnace. That's pretty
Well, the
much.
people that threw him in died.
Oh wait, they did.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll move on there. Verse 19. I didn't use your name right.
You didn't say my name at all.
Yeah, you just whispered no.
Did anybody not hear me whisper? See,
I know, I know Moses.
no, I didn't say Moses.
I
Get
don't
out.
know
Get out.
Mr. Nezer was so furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego basically destroyed the bridge. He commanded that the furnace proceed 7 times hotter than usual.
And verse 20.
Then he was some of the strongest men of his armies with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and threw them into the blazing furnace. So tied them up and threw them into the furnace. Being fully dressed in their pants, turbans, robes, and other garments. And because the king, in his anger, he demanded such a hot fire in the furnace, the flames killed the soldiers as they heard the 3 morning.
That's good. So like Andrew said, the 3 soldiers were like, okay, we're gonna tie these guys next to the tent. We're gonna throw them. Oh, we're dead now. I mean, that's supposed to be a pretty hot furnace there, and just to kill them the moment they open the door. I mean, just I wonder what killed them.
I think it's
Spontaneous combustion. Their turbines caught on fire, probably.
How did they
Well, it says that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego tumbled into the furnace, so that makes me think that like they opened the doors and just like.
well, they also got suffocated. The furnace wasn't ventilated because people just lived in there and they opened it.
I don't think that it's because the
It
heat.
would have to be
Something.
ventilated.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
possible that just like the heat itself like melted their faces off, which that's the way I would like to envision it. Helps me see the night.
Yeah.
So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, securely tied, fell into the roaring flames. But suddenly Nebuchadnezzar jumped up in amazement and exclaimed to his advisors, "Didn't we tie 3 men and throw them into the furnace?" "Yes, your majesty, we certainly did." Now at this point, he's looking at that. He says, "Oh, look, there are 4 men in there." He doesn't notice the fact that they aren't dead. He just says, "Oh, look, there's more than we threw in there." You know? And then
Hey,
they're
who
like,
was in the furnace when we threw those guys in?
he's like, "Well," and then he says, "Look, I see 4 men unbound and walking around in the fire unharmed, and the 4th looks like a god." So instead of saying, "They're not dead," or "One of them looks like a god," or "They're untied," he says, "There are 4 of them." So that's the biggest thing that's happening right there.
I mean, if they're not dead, whatever.
So Nebuchadnezzar came as close as he could to the door of the flaming furnace and shouted, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come here." So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stepped out of the fire. Then the high officers and governors, advisors, and generals, governors, and advisors crowded around them and saw the fire had not touched them. Not a hair on their head was singed, and their clothing was not scorched. They didn't even smell of smoke. And then Nebuchadnezzar says, "Praise to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He sent his angel to rescue his servants and trusted in him." Something interesting also, this word that they used early on, one of them looks like a god. Some people speculate that that could have actually been either an angel or it actually could have been God himself walking around in the fire with him.
Well, the actual translation, I think it was Aramaic, of the word they used was a son of the gods.
Exactly. So a lot of people think it actually was Jesus that was walking around with them, but it's not for sure. But I don't think it was actually Jesus just because that's the way the Aramaic states it. Nope, that's that they don't have furnace maintenance men who look like the Son of God. Maybe he was a carpenter. Oh!
What were you doing when you were looking at the furnace?
Hey,
It's a continuity error.
you
Could
know,
have been a stonemason.
a stonemason, but Jesus was a carpenter. That was the
They it's a carpenter.
do-
Could have been a stonemason.
interesting.
Or a carpenter.
Or carpenter. You know, they could have just typoed it instead of saying carpenter. They
Check it out. Read the reasons.
read the Bible. It's a good idea. All right, and he says, "Praise to God, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. There's no God who can rescue like this." And the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to even higher positions in the province of Babylon. Skip a couple verses there. He's just praising to God.
Yeah, he flip-flopped immediately. He goes from, if you don't worship my image, you'll be killed.
Torn limb
If
from
you
him, I
don't
think
worship
it's
their God, you're going to be killed.
Yeah, so he flip flops and does some really weird stuff there. He's a little bit angry, but yeah, so that works pretty well. He promotes them to the highest in the land because they were already pretty high, but now he promotes them even higher. And we go on to verse 4, where Nebuchadnezzar is listening to God and believing everything he says. Let's go to. Alright, so anyway, Nebuchadnezzar has a dream, and then he. Wait, here we go. Alright, so it says King Nebuchadnezzar sent this message to the people of every race, nation, language throughout the world. Peace and prosperity to you. I want you all to know about the miraculous signs and wonders the Most High God has performed for me. How great are his signs, how powerful his wonders. His kingdom will last forever. His rule, all generations. And then he talks about, he just gives a quick recount of what happened. Yep, and then he. Sorry about that, guys. Alright, so I'm going to skip up to verse 10 because we're kind of running a little short on time. It says, while I was laying on my bed, this is what I dreamed. I saw a large tree in the middle of the earth. The tree grew very tall and strong, reached high into the heavens for all the world to see. It had fresh green leaves, and it was loaded with fruit for all to eat. Wild animals lived in its shade, birds nested in its branches, all the world was served from the tree. And as I lay there dreaming, I saw the messenger, a holy one, coming down from the heavens. The messenger shouted, cut down a tree, lop off its branches, shake off its leaves, scatter its fruit, just as wild animals from its shade, birds in its branches, blah, 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 it goes on. So he talks about all this tree being destroyed,
Let him look at the wild animals and the plants in the field.
Yep. And yeah, let's jump straight to verse 18. It says, Belteshazzar, the dream that I, King Nebuchadnezzar, had. Now tell me what it means, for none of the wise men of my kingdom can do so. Now Belteshazzar, again, remember, it's Daniel. It says, but you can tell me because the spirit of the holy gods plural, he still doesn't quite get it, is in you. And Daniel explains the dream. Let's jump straight to verse. Yeah, verse 25. It says, this, you will be driven from human society. You will live in the fields with the wild animals. You will eat grass like a cow. You will be drenched with the dew of heaven 7 periods of time, which could be years, could be seasons, we're not actually sure, but 7 periods of time will pass while you live this way until you learn the Most High God rules over the kingdoms of the world and gives them to anyone he chooses. But the stump and the roots of the tree were left in the ground. This means that you will receive your kingdom back again when you learn that heaven rules. And so he just pretty much goes over the entire dream, says this is what's going to happen. My dreams are 100% solid. I've been able to prove to you that God is the most powerful. You threw a couple guys in the furnace. They walked out alive. And he says, King Nebuchadnezzar, please accept my advice. Stop sinning. Do what is right. Break down from your wicked past and be merciful to the poor. Perhaps then you will continue to prosper. And I think he probably does do that because it turns out pretty well for him. He turns back from his evil ways, starts worshiping God, and none of that happens. And it says, but these things did happen to King Nebuchadnezzar. So apparently he didn't follow Daniel's advice. All these things happened. 12 months later, he was taking a walk on the flat earth of the royal palace in Babylon. As he looked out across the city, he said, look at this great city of Babylon. By my own mighty power, I have built this beautiful city as my royal residence, to display my majestic splendor. And while these words were still in his mouth, a voice came down from the heaven and said, O King Nebuchadnezzar, this message is for you. You are no longer ruler of this kingdom. You will be driven from human society. You will live in the fields like a wild animal. You will eat grass like a cow. 7 periods of time will pass while you live this way, until you learn the Most High God rules over the things of the world and gives them to anyone he chooses. That same hour, the judgment was fulfilled, and Nebuchadnezzar was driven from human society. He ate grass like a cow. He was drenched in dew of heaven. He lived this way until his hair was long as eagle's feathers, and his nails were like bird's claws. My brother used to grow his nails off. So terrifying. Yeah, no, he would scratch me like when we were like tussling and then like get infected. Have you guys ever like been scratched by a cat and it gets like really nasty?
I have 2 kittens.
Yeah. Yeah, they like scratch really weird. I think I probably have to Anyway, so Nebuchadnezzar turns into a cow because he refuses to believe God's words, and yeah, well, pretty much his hair grows long. I mean, did you guys see the picture? I mean, he's eating grass. It is like
A cow. How do you turn into a cow?
God figured out a way. You cannot turn into a cow unless, I mean, I don't think so. 3. So yeah, same hour judgment was fulfilled. Nebuchadnezzar pretty much just did not listen to what God had to say. He was warned several times beforehand. He'd been shown miraculous signs. And I really like this story because this is a chance where God doesn't just straight down kill him. you've seen in the past where God warns one of the kings, especially a non-Jewish king, says, "Hey, you need to stop doing what you're doing," and if they don't, they immediately die. You guys have seen it. They get assassinated. They get struck down by lightning. They get
Belshazzar.
there was a couple of guys that grabbed onto the tabernacle or the Ark of the Covenant, touched it, and died. I mean, God really has had a no leniency policy, and at this time he decides, hey, I'm going to turn you into this cow 7 periods. Well, not I'm saying turn into a cow, but he made him into an animal, and he says 7 periods you're going to stay like this until you can see that I am the Most High God. And that happens, and it says after this time had passed, I, Nebuchadnezzar, looked up to the heavens, my sanity returned, and I praised and worshipped the Most High God, and honored him who lives forever. Now, that's kind of a cool point. You see Nebuchadnezzar living there out in the field, and he reaches this point where God says, hey, your time's up, your punishment's over, your timeout's over. He says, I am God. Do you see that now? And Nebuchadnezzar goes back, and he actually becomes king again. And it says, now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and glorify and honor the King of Heaven. All his acts are just and true, and he's able to humble the proud. It's kind of a cool little passage. If you have a chance, you should go back and read what he writes. He has like a little psalm, a little poem that he writes, and it's kind of cute. We don't have much time left, so we're going to jump straight on to verse 5. Belshazzar. Andrew, would you care to give a little introduction here and then do that part right there?
Chapter 5, verse 5.
Chapter 5, verse 1. I'm going to start right in with Belshazzar. Now, Belshazzar actually wasn't king at the time. He was the son of the king. It says the words they use here are, he sat on the throne. So he wasn't actually king of the area. His dad was just out of town. So there are kind of a couple cool little points there I would love to get to, but I really don't think I can. We're running out of time. So
many years later, King Belshazzar gave a great feast for 1,000 of his nobles to drink wine with him. While Belshazzar was drinking the wine, he gave orders to bring in the gold and silver cups that his predecessor, Nebuchadnezzar, had taken from the temple in Jerusalem. He wanted to drink from them, with his nobles, his wives, and his concubines. So they brought these gold cups taken from the temple, the house of God in Jerusalem, and the king and his nobles, his wives, and his concubines drank from them. While they drank from them, they praised their idols made of gold, silver, bronze, iron, wood, and stone. Suddenly, they saw the finger of a human hand writing on the plaster wall of the king's palace, near the lampstand. The king himself saw the hand as it wrote, and his face turned pale with fright. His knees knocked together in fear, and his legs gave way beneath him. How far you want to read?
We're on verse 7.
Okay. The king shouted for the enchanters, astrologers, and fortune tellers to be brought before him. He said to these wise men of Babylon, whoever can read this writing and tell me what it means will be dressed in purple robes of royal honor, and will have a gold chain placed around his neck. He will become the 3rd highest ruler in the kingdom.
Remember, he's the son of the king, so that's about as high as you can go. He's the second highest. Third highest. Anyway, so then they go through the trouble of all the wise men can't tell you what it means, all the enchanters, all the astrologers, nobody can tell what it means. Then the queen mother heard what was happening. She hurried to the banquet hall and said to Belshazzar, long live the king, don't be so pale and frightened. There is a man in your kingdom who has within him the spirit of the holy gods. Again, they don't quite get it yet. During Nebuchadnezzar's reign, this man was found to have insight, understanding, and wisdom like of the gods. Your predecessor, King Nebuchadnezzar, made him chief over all magicians, enchanters, astrologers, fortune tellers, and Babylons. This man, Daniel, whom the king named Belteshazzar, has exceptional ability and is filled with divine knowledge and understanding. He can interpret dreams, explain riddles, solve difficult problems, call for Daniel, and give a little explain what it means. Explain. So Daniel is called. He comes in. He says, "Oh yeah, I know what that means." He says, "Yeah, what's up?"
What are concubines?
Concubines are like wives, but not married. It's like, remember when we were talking about King Solomon, how he had like 400 wives and 300 concubines? Concubines were the ones that he married, quote unquote, without like a wedding, without a huge formal thing. He just married them, and they were off to the side. You know, they were pretty much just like servants, almost like. And then the wives were the ones that he married for, political reasons, and married them, and then he got half of their stuff, and then they got half of his stuff, something like that. So his little wives were up here, concubines were like here off to the side. That's the best I can explain it. So Daniel's called in. He says, "I can explain this. Pretty much what it means is, if you do not stop your evil ways, you will be killed promptly." Let's see. And quotation from page 1. It says, "This message that is written, Mene Mene Tekel Parsin." This is what it means. Mene means numbered. God has numbered the days of your reign and has brought it to an end. Tekel means weighed. You have been weighed on the balance and not measured up. Parsin means divided. The kingdom has been divided and given to the Medes and Persians. Then at Belteshazzar's command, Daniel was dressed in purple robes, gold chains hung around his neck. He was proclaimed third highest in the kingdom. And that very night, Belteshazzar, the Babylonian king, was killed. He's like, "Oh, that's great news! Thank you, Daniel. You did good. Here's your chain. Here's your cool stuff."
And then immediately
this
it
is
became fulfilled.
It became fulfilled immediately. That same night, he was assassinated by the Medes and Persians, because at this time they're actually being invaded. There was the Syrians and the Medes and Persians were right outside their gate, attacking them. He says, "Well, let's have a party." Da 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 da. They break in, they kill. The end.
Yep.
So we're gonna move on. And Darius the Mede took over the kingdom at the age of 62. So Darius is the guy who attacked. Daniel is still in charge. Daniel is still like a really crucial point in this. Let's say he's one of the advisors to Belteshazzar. So Darius comes, or Belshazzar. So Darius comes in and says, "Hey, that's actually a good idea. You seem like a really smart guy." The king also chose Daniel and 2 others as his administrators to supervise the high officers and protect the king's interests. Daniel soon proved himself more capable than all the other administrators and high officers. Because of Daniel's great ability, the king made plans to place him over the entire empire. Now, obviously you remember the administrators and the magicians and everybody doesn't like Daniel, because he's doing that. He's coming in being really good at this job and being really, really God-centered and being really awesome. Hey. Okay. Listen, no, we're out of time. We're almost done. Probably. So, we have more. So the same thing happens. They don't like him. They say, "Hey, we're gonna have to get rid of Daniel." They try and get rid of him. They look at him. They say, "Well, he has no faults." They look at him. They say, "Well, he isn't doing anything wrong." So let's come up with a scheme. So they start scheming together, and they say, "Okay, what does Daniel do a lot? Well, he prays to his God. Oh, that's a great idea. We'll go to the king, King Darius. They say, 'Hey, Darius, so you know how you're awesome?' He's like, 'Yeah, I know. I am awesome.' And he goes up to them and he says, 'Oh, well, we like the fact that people come to you and pray to you and ask for things from you.' He says, 'Yeah, I like that too. I'm pretty awesome, aren't I?' He says, 'Yeah, that's cool. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make a rule.' 'Yes, I'm listening. Your rule is everybody in the next in the next couple days, everyone has to ask you for stuff.' That doesn't make any. They have to ask you for. If they ask for anybody else for stuff, we kill them. They have to ask
They could
only
use
you.
him as a footstool to play Scrabble on, or tie him up and throw him on a donkey and trip him out the herd.
It makes sense. They had to pray to him. They had to ask him for stuff. They literally couldn't pray to anyone except for Darius for the next couple days. And it wasn't even like forever. It was just for the next period of time.
There's no reason.
There's no reason. They just say,
Just, hey, let's just kill him.
and
Well,
he's like,
yeah, they summed it up as like, let's have like a
party.
king month. Let's everybody remember the king and how great he is. We gotta pray to him. We gotta ask him for everything.
Everything.
Like,
He's like, yeah, that sounds pretty good. I am the king. I should be the center of attention. Anyway, Daniel has this routine where he gets up in the morning, turns towards Jerusalem, and prays to God. And the guys know this,
caught
so they catch him praying.
red-handed.
They catch him red-handed, hands clasped, praying, and they take him to the king and say, "Hey, this guy was praying to God." And Darius is pretty upset. Let's see in verse. This is verse 12. So they went straight to the king and reminded him about the law. "Did you not sign a law that for the next 30 days the person who prays to anyone, divine or human, except to you, your majesty, will be thrown into the den of lions?" "Yes," the king replies, "that decision stands as the official law of the Medes and the Persians, and cannot be revoked." And they
Quick note. The kings of this time had a great rule. The king of Persia made a rule that none of the king's rules could be reversed. Ever. If a rule was made, it has to be fulfilled. Can't be reversed.
which you also see with Esther.
By anybody, not even the king. Not even the king.
The king made that rule.
The king several hundred years ago.
So you can't.
He can't undo it.
He can't undo it.
So he can't overpower his own rules.
He can't. He cannot.
Well, it was actually made by
There's no
it was made by kings beforehand. It said any rule made by a king can't be undone. so that a king can't make a rule, die, and have a son go over and say, no, that rule won't work.
So does that say like past kings have more power than
Yes,
new kings?
absolutely.
Yeah,
And
Absolutely.
there's no way to overrule them. because
There's
they're
no way.
exactly.
Exactly.
Well, no, they couldn't even overrule their own rule. Is what he's saying. It was an extremely arrogant rule.
So anyway, hearing this, the king was deeply troubled. He tried to think of a way to save Daniel. He's like, wait, this is a bad idea. Why did I do this? This was terrible. I didn't think this one through? Because he likes Daniel. He's like, this is a stupid rule. I didn't think this through. But it was a rule that was made by the laws of the kings and the Medes and the Persians, so he literally cannot change it. And he can't think of a way to change it. So he spent the rest of the day looking for a way to get Daniel out of this predicament. In the evening, the men went together and said, Your Majesty, you know that according to the law of the Medes and the Persians, no law of king's science can be changed. So at last the king gave orders for Daniel to be arrested and thrown into the den of lions. He says, May your God, whom you serve so faithfully, rescue you. And a stone was brought and placed over the mouth of the giant, and Daniel was eaten alive.
No.
Moving on to what?
Can't you do like a rule that reverses?
Nope.
Nope.
Mm-mm.
Well, can you say a law that
Nope.
on this particular date everybody gets to get out of jail free?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I guess maybe if you thought about it, probably.
Good.
Well, no, but Daniel even said, don't bother ruining your credibility as a king over this.
Yeah.
Just throw me in.
Let's see, where does he say that?
Because he says Daniel. Let's see, where was it? Daniel had said.
That doesn't say
I
anything.
thought he said that.
Nope, doesn't. You're full of pooping.
Also, I think with the priest,
Moving on.
I think your priest
Okay, well, we're out of time, Cole.
Yeah.
You need to-
Yeah, Cole. Seriously, man. Gosh. So Daniel's eaten alive. Moving on.
No, he wasn't eaten alive.
Yeah.
Uh,
Don't think that's.
Okay, so then the king returned to his palace and spent the night fasting. He refused his usual entertainment and couldn't sleep at all that night. Very early the next morning, the king got up and heard the lion's den. And when he got there, he called out in anguish, Daniel, servant of the Most High God, was your God who you serve so faithfully able to rescue you from the lions? And Daniel said, We've got pizza. I can't believe none of you guys have seen that, have you? It's
the second VeggieTales.
Yes, yeah, it's a good one. So, a great show. Great show. You should always watch it. It says, the answer, Long live the king, my God sent his angel to shut the lions' mouths so that they would not hurt me. For I have been found innocent in his sight, and I have not wronged you, your majesty. The king was overjoyed and ordered that Daniel be lifted from the den. Not a scratch was found on his body. Found on him, he trusted in his God. Then the king gave orders to arrest the men who maliciously accused Daniel. They had been thrown into the lion's den along with their wives and their children. The lions leapt on them, tore them apart before they could even hit the floor of the den. Then King Darius sent this message to the people in every race and language throughout the world: peace and prosperity to you. I decree that everyone throughout the kingdom should tremble with fear before the God of Daniel. For he is the living God, he will endure forever, his kingdom will never be destroyed. He will to the very end.
Yeah, we did a whole poem about it.
I love how they do that. He's like, all right, well, he's the real God. Peace to you. Tremble with fear.
And chapter 7 is that big. It's a bunch of predictions as it starts out.
Yep.
Why was it
So,
that showed
Daniel
you
starts
the
having visions. he
Moving
starts
on.
saying-
We're gonna move right on to chapter 7, which remember if you guys talked about was a prophecy about the beast.
Why is no law to be reversed? Then why did people still not worship Daniel's God?
The law was never made for heaven worship. It wasn't made that like it's
So,
specific law. to do with
different kings. So King of Babylon got their kingdom overtaken by the King of Persia. This is a Persian law.
Right. Also, King Darius right here, he didn't actually make a law that they had to. He said you should and tremble with fear. So we're gonna wrap up real quick, talking about prophecy from verse 7, 8, all the way through the end. We're talking about future things that are about to come. We talked about it in the slideshow. If you guys have any questions about that, I can go over it. But we're gonna wrap up real quick. A really awesome theme that I want to bring to light right before we end is the whole theme of the entire book, which is the fact that people trusted in God, and the fact that we should trust in God, and the fact that things can look really, really, really grim and really bad, but God was always there for his people, and he always will be for his people. And no matter how bleak it looks, and no matter how messed up and how screwed up the school system or your work or your parents not knowing about God or not trusting God, even though they may not trust in God, if you trust in God and do what he says and follow his commands, it'll work out okay. It's not saying that you should say, sorry, mom and dad, I'm not going to go clean my room because God says that I need to study the Bible 24/7. Because that's not exactly how it means. But if somebody says, hey, you know, let's sneak out tonight, let's go do something wrong, and you're like, hey, I really don't think that's a great idea because it says in the Bible that I should honor my parents want me to stay inside, then you should do that. And it's going to turn out better for you. And no matter what it looks, how bad it looks, no matter how much it's like, well, you're going to get in trouble now because that you're doing the right thing, everyone else is doing the wrong thing. It's going to turn out okay. And roll sign. So yeah, and that's just the entire premise and the entire middle and the entire conclusion of Daniel. See it throughout every single one of the stories, and I'd encourage you guys to go back and read them if you can. Even the story of King Nebuchadnezzar when he was turned into a cow. That's a story of him pretty much God saying, "Hey, I need you to do what's right, and I'm going to take care of you. And even though you're wanting to do the wrong thing, I'm going to turn you towards the right way." And he actually lived a full life, lived his entire reign. And then after him, that's when it all went, down the drain. And they were taken over, and the guy was stabbed to death. And it's a good story. Anyway, so we're gonna wrap up real quick. What's up? What's up?
All right, so let's pray.
So yeah, we're gonna wrap up real quick. We're gonna pray. Andrew, just pray.
Sure. Dear God, thank you for this day. Thank